Hey guys, this is my every book I read in 2023. So I read 54 books in 2023, which is a little slower than I did in 2022. In 2022, I had started reading audiobooks at work and I had a different job than I do now. So it was a lot easier and I like zoomed through them. So now like this year, half of the year didn't work there anymore. And I was trying to because I was pretty burnt out from 2022, I was struggling. I was in a big book slump a lot of this year. And so it just wasn't as many. And because of that, I feel like I didn't have that good of a reading year. I know that I was scared to read fantasy this year because at the beginning and the very end of 2022, I had a couple flops. And so I was kind of scared to read fantasy. And then most of the fantasies I read this year just were not it, folks. They weren't great. Not all of them were bad. They weren't like horrible books or anything. I just don't think they were for me. And I think I just struggled with finding books that were for me this year. And so it's just a big struggle with that. But I did have some good books this year and I'm excited to talk about them. I have some books here with me that I was able to get from the library because I don't own a single one of the physical books. I own a couple of the audiobooks on Audible, but I don't own any of the physical books that I read this year. It's fine. That means I didn't touch any of my physical TBR. It's fine. It's fine. We're gonna work on it in 2022. Anyways, so I've already tried to film this video before and it was way too long. So we're going to try and make it a little shorter. I think I just spent too much time on the books. So I'm going to be telling you what I rated them. And then I'm going to be maybe talking about a little bit about the book or like what I thought about the book. And then we'll just move on to the next one. So the first book I read was The Traitor Prince. I rated this 4.25 stars. I started this in 2022 and then I ended it in 2023. So this is the third book in the Ravenspire series. It's a series of fairy tale retellings, and this is The Prince and the Pauper. I really liked this book a lot. I liked the main character. He was really fun. I liked the situation he was in. I loved the action scenes. They got pretty intense, which was really fun, and this one did keep me intrigued. A lot of the Ravenspire's books are really, they actually do keep me intrigued, which I was surprised about, because they are just like YA and there's like no spice or anything in them, but they're really good. They're really, really good. So I definitely recommend this series. My second book of the year, I decided to change it up a little bit and stay away from fantasy and romance a little bit, and I read Two Truths and a Lie. This is a YA mystery thriller book and I rated it at 4 stars. So this is about a group of students who are just coming back from a competition and they get snowed into a hotel, and then because everyone's stuck inside, they discover they're also there with another group of students who came from a competition and from a different one than the one they came from, and a student goes missing. So then they have to figure out where they went and if there were if there's darker things happening in the hotel, and it was really good. I did enjoy this a lot. And it's books like this that make me realize I do like mystery and I do like thriller and I do need to read them more. So the third book I don't have with me, and it is Song of the Marked. I rated this a 3.5 star, which I am surprised about because I felt like it should have been a 3 star for how much I didn't enjoy it. Especially now, a year later, thinking about it, it just was not a book for me, I think. And I don't know if I'm going to continue the series. Right now, I'm just I don't know. It was supposed to be everything that I love. And I really liked the way it started. And then by the end of the book, I was upset. I was upset. I didn't like the way it went. I didn't like the direction that it went in. I remember ranting with my old coworker about this for an hour of our shift because I had finished it at work, and I was like, what did I just read? Okay. I have this series on TikTok about how I felt about the series and my review and stuff. So if you want a more in-depth opinion about it, go there. But this book wasn't for me. I think that's just the basic idea of it. I did enjoy aspects of it. There were characters I liked, but I don't even know what exactly about it at this point, what I didn't like about it. I just remember I didn't like it, basically. So the next book is also a book I don't own, and it is Rule Breaker. So I rated this 4 stars. This was my first ebook of the year, which was great. I was able to read a lot more ebooks, which I was proud of this year. And this is a college sports romance, and I do remember enjoying this a lot. I don't fully remember what the plot's about. I think they have to live together. I'm not entirely sure. It's a roommate thing situation too. I'm gonna go double check. Oh, it's fake dating is what it is. And I did remember enjoying this a lot. It was just a simple romance, which it was good. I do remember liking it. I just don't remember very much of the plot. Anyways, let's move on. So the next book I read was The Bodyguard. I rated this 3.5 stars, which I'm surprised I didn't rate it a 3 stars because I just remember not liking this book. I remember by the end of it, I was upset because I was like, what did I just read? But I apparently liked it enough that I rated it a 3.5 stars. So I don't fully remember what this is about. I don't even remember what I don't like about it. It's just kind of, it's a short book that's just kind of not super memorable in my opinion, and it just wasn't my type of book. I don't really have anything else other to say about it, I don't think. But yeah, it just wasn't a book for me. The Year We Hid Away was the next book I read. I rated this 5 stars. This is my first 5-star of the year, and it deserves that freaking position because it was so good. I would still rate this 5 stars to the day. Bridger, I love. It is a college romance. It's a college romance with a little bit of sports, but he like is on the hockey team, but the year that he like this book takes place, he's not on the hockey team for a second because there's just stuff going on in his personal life. This is actually the second book in the Ivy Years series, and I love this book. I think this is my favorite book in the series so far. It's so good. It's so good. Bridger has to take care of his little sister, and it's just good. It's just good. It's just amazing, and I freaking love it. Then I read the like kind of like small novella that follows the second book, and that is The Blonde Date. And it was just a very short novella. It's basically about a date that happens during this book, but you get like the actual side of what actually is going on. So that was really cute. I rated it a 5 stars as well. I think I would probably rate it a 4 stars or 4.5 stars just because it was a small novella, and I don't think it should have that high of rating, but it was good. I remember it being good, so maybe it does deserve that 5 stars. I just don't fully remember. So then because I read those 2 books, I wanted to revisit the first book, which I read in 2022, and kind of revisit those characters. So I read The Year We Fell Down, and this is also a sports, like it's a college romance that has sports again, but he's not playing sports because he broke his leg, and so he can't play anymore for this book. So I don't consider them sports romances. At least these first 2 I don't consider sports romances. So I rated this a 4 star. I actually don't remember if that's the rating I gave it the second time around or if it was the rating I gave it the first time around, because I remember when I reread this for the second time, I actually didn't like it as much because of just a couple things that happen in it. He does cheat on his girlfriend in this for our female main character, and even though it's like the female's a bitch and she's just not great and like the situation's not good, it didn't fully sit well with me, I think, what it was. And so I don't know if it was a 5 stars and then I brought it down because of the cheating, but I didn't fully love it. But it is a cute book. I still love them together. I think they're a really cute couple. I think I wish it would have played out a little differently, and so I don't like it as much the second time around, and so now Bridger is my number 1 in the second book. So I read those at the beginning of the year, January, February, and then skip forward to April. I read a decent amount of books in between, and I read the next book in the series, which is The Understatement of the Year. I also rated this 5 stars, so this is a higher series for me. I rated this 5 stars as well. This is an MM romance that I would consider a sports romance because they are 2 actively playing hockey players. So both of them are on the hockey team. One is openly gay and one is closeted gay, and they actually used to know each other when they were younger, and then they got separated and they like didn't talk to each other anymore, and now they're suddenly on the same hockey team. So this was a lot of fun. I liked this a lot. The MM like romance was great. It was really good. I liked the way it was handled with everything, and I loved the presence of the other characters from the other books. I wish Bridger was in it more, but that's okay. I understand. We have to move on to the next characters. And then I read the second to last book, The Shameless Hour, and I rated this 4.25 stars. So she is the hockey team student manager who kind of helps along, and she was very present in the third book, and so now it's her romance story, and I really liked it a lot. Her love interest was really cute. I really liked the story. There was some more intense stuff in this book, which I was surprised about, but it was really good still, and I loved how present the characters from the third book were in because they are really close friends. She was just going through some shit. I did bring this down, and I don't fully know why, because I love the main male character, and I loved the main female character, and I love the story. I think I just maybe it was just the romance was a little bit less tension for me. I know I've struggled with romance this year as well, with it just not hitting as hard. And I think I've just read too many because I've not been reading fantasy. I think I could only have so many in a row, and so that might have played a fact in it, but I'm not entirely sure. But this one was really good, so I just have one more left in the series. So now we're going back to the beginning of the year again, and the next book I read was Love in Other Words. So this is a Christina Lauren book, and I really like Christina Lauren. They're a great author. My goal is to like collect all of their books and to read all of their books because I do really enjoy it. This one, unfortunately though, didn't hit as hard for me as some of their other books. I rated this a 4-star, and in the past I've rated Christina Lauren easily 5 stars. So this one just wasn't my favorite. There's a couple of things inside the book itself that I think has overshadowed the rest of the book now, that I'm just like look at it and I'm like, damn, I didn't like that book. But I do think I really enjoyed it. Besides the ending, I think it's just what changed my opinion on it. And then I haven't read any more Christina Lauren since. I think I still really like them. I think it's just, again, was this book in particular. So the next book I read was Cowboy Rebel. This is the 4th book in the Longhorn Canyon series. I read the first 3 in 2022, and then I read this one because I was like in the mood for cowboy romance. I went to the rodeo last year and I was wanting to read a little bit, and so I read this one. It's cute. It's a basic just cowboy romance. There's not like, it's like, it does have some cool elements to it, and I rated this a 4-star, by the way. I forgot to say that. There were some cool elements in it. I kind of like the idea that he's like this bad boy cowboy, and he has like a bike, but he's also like a cowboy. I think the romance just fell a little short for me in this book. The next book was Like I Never Said. This is a weird book. This is a book I didn't fully enjoy. So this is a 3-star for me. This is a sports romance, but it's like not a sports romance, and it's like a summer romance, but it's like not a summer. It's kind of confusing. So I didn't like the way it was just told, I think, is what ruined it, and it took away all of the tension of the romance, and that made me just not like it. I'm surprised I didn't give it a 2.5 stars for how much I did not like it. So again, a lot of these things that I think I just rate things high, which is fine. So this one's basically these 2 kids, like, I think it's throughout their high school years, they meet during summer, and then every summer she goes back because they don't live in the same place, and so every summer she goes back and they just like reconnect and stuff, and they're just like best friends and they talk all the time over phone. But the issue I think I had with it is that it was only the summer times that we didn't get any of the in-between and the growing of them as friends, and I think that's just what ruined it for me. So the next one I'm just going to do all together because it's a series. Even though I didn't read them all together, I want to just talk about them all together, and it's the Shatter Me series. So I rated most of these 4 stars. This is almost an entire 4-star series. All of these are 4 stars besides this one. This one's a 4.75. And then all of the novellas that I've read so far are 4 stars besides the 2 novellas that were Kenji's. Those are both 5 stars. I'm going to try and hold these while we talk about them. So I remember when I went into Shatter Me, I went in with the wrong expectations because everyone freaks out about Warner. Everyone loves Aaron. Everyone loves him. And I hated him. I hated him so much. So then that kind of ruined it for me. But then when I started going into the book as just like, let's just read it how it's meant to be told, then I started to enjoy it more. And I went from an Adam girly to a Warner girly at the end. But I'm actually not a Warner girly altogether. I'm actually a Kenji girly. I love Kenji. I love him so much. I think Warner, I had to kind of do a disconnect from Warner because his like normal, like his birth given name is the same name as my brother-in-law. So that was a little weird. That was a little strange. So I think it kind of just disconnected me. So that's why I just call him Warner for the most part. I think there's something about this series. When I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I didn't like that series all that much. But I actually did enjoy it a lot. Like this series made me cry. This series made me freak out. I think what I just struggled with was I did struggle with the romance between Juliet and Warner. Because one, I couldn't get in love with Warner too much. Second is that I went into the series expecting it to be very spicy. And it's like closed door, besides I think like this one is like the tiniest bit of like spice, and so I went into it wrong. So again, just like wrong expectations and relying too much on like what it's supposed to be instead of just going into the series and letting the story tell me what it's supposed to be about. Okay, my arm's hurting. We're just gonna put it like this because I'm holding it weird. And then the more we got of Kenji, the more I really enjoyed it. And it's not that I hate their relationship or anything, like Juliet and Warner's relationship. It's just not my like top tier. I don't like think about it ever. I'm not like, ooh, they're so cute, all that kind of stuff. But Kenji though, every single time I think about Kenji, And his romance is getting good. So all I need left of this series is I need the last book and the last novella. And I just haven't finished it. I need to find that motivation to finish the series. So the next one is Faking with Benefits. This is also an ebook that I read. This is a White Shoes romance. I think it was my first White Shoes. I think it is my first White Shoes, like at least with more than just 3 people involved, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun. I'm discovering I do like White Shoes. I think it depends on how the White Shoes is done though, but I really enjoyed this one. I love the premise of this first one. Oh, and I rated this 4 stars, by the way. I keep forgetting to say that. So this was a 4-star read for me. And then I read, because I like this one a lot, I read another book by her called Nanny for the Neighbors, and I think this one's my favorite out of all the books I've read of this author so far. I also rated this a 4-star, but this is a higher 4-star than Faking with Benefits. And this one was really good too. I love the idea, like the aspect of a baby being there was just so perfect. I loved that. And then I also read another White Shoes by this author later in the year, and it was Triple Duty Bodyguards. And I rated this a 3.75 stars. This one was my least favorite, I think, out of all the 3 books that I've read so far of her, but I did still enjoy it a lot. It was just later in the year, again, was having issues with romance, and I think that might have just had a play in it. So the next book was Twin Crowns. I rated this a 4-star. I had joined like this group chat with these other people who read. We tried to do like a book club type of thing where we all read the same book together, and it kind of just like fell under, I think people were just like busy and not able to do it, but I was able to read it, and I've been meaning to read this book for a while now, so I'm glad I had the opportunity to finish this. I did enjoy this a lot. I wasn't like super in love with it though. I'm like trying to remember, there's a couple scenes that were memorable, but it wasn't like I'm like antsy to continue the series, if that makes sense, but it was good. So the next one's Strictly Business, and I rated this a 5-star. I can't fully remember it entirely to why I gave it a 5-star, but I think I did enjoy it a lot. I think it does deserve its 5-star. So I really love the surprise baby trope, and I love the pregnancy trope, and I just love that idea, but I have to be in the mood for it and wanting it, but I do really enjoy it, and I was in the mood to read it a lot this year, and so this was a kind of a different take on it. She wants to get pregnant, and so then her boss, I think it is, he decides, it's her boss or her coworker, I'm not entirely sure. He decides, he's like, I will help you have a baby. And so then he's like gonna help like have her not like sexually and do it where you transfer it all medically, and then things turn a little romantic, and it's very cute. It wasn't technically, I guess, a surprise baby trope, but it was the pregnancy trope. Her actually being pregnant was at the end of it, so it wasn't fully what I was wanting, but the story itself in general was really good, that I still really enjoyed it. So the next one, I wanted a little break from romance again, and it was The Last Confession of Autumn Casterly. So this is a thriller mystery, I think. I don't know how I would determine this book. I think it's a mystery. But then it kind of has some thriller aspects, but I would consider it more mystery, and it's like a YA mystery. I rated this a 4.25 stars. I honestly don't, like, I remember things of this book, but nothing enough to like tell you. Her sister goes missing, and it's like this thing that she has to go through, and you get like POVs from both of them. I don't fully remember it enough. It didn't like resonate with me so much that I'm like, oh, I fully remember this book, but it was good. I did enjoy it. It was a nice like kind of palate cleanser after all the romance. On to one of my favorite books of the year, and it was The American Roommate Experiment. I love this book so much. I rated this 5 stars easily. This was so good. Lucas, so good. So this is actually the follow-up book to The Spanish Love Deception, which I also read, but I read this one first. I am really glad I read this one first. So I was really in the mood to read a roommate like romance, and so I found this one, and I was like, it's technically the second book, but you know what, I'm gonna start it, and I'm so glad I did, because I was in love with this. The tension, so good at this, and I love the romance. It was really good. So then a couple months later, I decided that I was like, you know what, I want to read The Spanish Love Deception, because I read this one first about her best friend and how they ended up together, because like they're further in the relationship in this book, and now I want to see how they got together in The Spanish Love Deception. And I rated this a 4 stars. So this one was lower. I did like this one still a lot, but I think I prefer The American Roommate more. It just resonated more with me. This one, the tension was good too, and Aaron is a great guy, and I love him a lot. I think it just didn't sit like fully with me, and I wasn't super fangirling the entire time like I was with the American Roommate experiment. I keep saying experience. So I read my first Tessa Bailey book this year, and it was Fix Her Up. This was spicy. This was spicy for sure. She definitely, but it was also rom-com, which I really enjoyed. I rated this a 4-star. I didn't fully super in love with this book. I think that I would have liked just a little bit more plot, but the idea was really cute. I can't tell you what this book's about. I can't remember. That's where I'm like, it didn't fully resonate with me completely, but I did enjoy it. And I do want to read more by Tessa Bailey and see if there's like other ones that I resonate even more with and see if I like even more. But I did love the ending of this. The ending of this was really cute. I did remember that I loved that a lot. I was in the mood again for a surprise pregnancy or a pregnancy trope, just because like the last one didn't like do what I was in the mood for. So I was still in the mood for it. So I tried to find something else. So I read Kiss to Belong, and this book was not for me. I did not like the writing of this book. I didn't like it very much. The romance was cute. The pregnancy thing was okay, but it just fell short. This was an ebook. This just wasn't my favorite. I just didn't really like it, honestly. I rated it a 3 stars. So the next one was Playing Hard to Get. This was also a college, I think it was a college romance as well. I don't fully remember what this one's about either, but I remember enjoying it. I did rate it a 3.5 stars, so I didn't fully enjoy it, so I'm gonna go off that rating. And yeah, it was a book I read, but I don't remember anything about it, so I can't really tell you. So the next book I read was Daughter of Sparta. This was a lot of fun. This book was so good. This book was really fun to read. So I rated this a 4-star. The only thing that brought it down from a 5-star was the romance. The romance just didn't fully sit with me, but it is a continuation series, and so I do need to keep reading it to see if the romance gets better, because they don't get together by the end of this book. There's just stuff that happens, so maybe I would like them when they are actually getting together and stuff. I loved her. She was badass. She was saving the day all the time, and it gave me that. It was one of the good fantasy books this year that I actually read. It's either Roman or Greek mythology. I can't fully remember, but she has to go on an adventure with a god so that she can like go save the godly realm, because like Olympus, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's Olympus, and because like something's happening, and then she gets blackmailed into it because her brother's like kidnapped basically. And it was really good. Again, just like the romance didn't fully sit with me, and I think Apollo was just not, I was wanting more out of him, I think is what it was, and I just didn't get that, you know. Another romance book, again, I read too many this year, and that is Spoiler Alert. So I was really hoping I was gonna like this book. I thought it was gonna be perfect for me, like it was meant to be for me, honestly. It's about a plus size girl, which like resonated with my soul, which was really nice. It was about a nerd who loved to like write fan fiction and was cosplaying and was just like really into this TV series, and it was supposed to be for me, honestly, because I cosplay and I've written fan fiction before. I'm embarrassed to admit, and like I resonated with her situation a lot, and I did, that's what I did enjoy about it, but I didn't fully love how plus size was represented in this, so I did rate it a 3.5 star. I don't know how to describe it, so the best way I think I can figure out how to describe it, so I don't like the terminology she used for plus size, even though I know she is a plus size woman herself who wrote this. I just don't think that me in my plus size, like I didn't love it very much, and maybe that's just because of my own insecurities, but I also just didn't super love the romance aspect of this book, like the actual romance between the two characters. I liked the characters on their own, but I don't know if I liked them together. It felt very fictional to me, if that makes sense. It felt very not realistic at all, and it felt such like a fictional story where, of course, like especially since like he was so lustful after her at the beginning, and I think that's what I didn't like about it, is because as someone who is plus size reading about a plus size girl, I just didn't resonate with it, but because it felt too fictional. It felt like, oh, that can't happen in real life, you know, like it was a fan fiction itself. It was honestly that. So this next book, I'm embarrassed to admit, a little bit embarrassed. So I read my first monster romance, and it was called Meet. I rated this as 3 stars. It kind of gave me what I wanted, but it didn't give me what I wanted. Yeah, we're gonna move on now. I don't really wanna I'm embarrassed to talk about it. So, but I read it this year, so I wasn't gonna leave it out of the video. So I read Meet, and I gave it a 3 stars. So the next book I read was one of my favorite books of the year as well, and it was called Falling. I Loved this book. This book was so good. It was an action movie written in book form, honestly, and I love action movies, so that was perfect. It kept me at the edge of my seat. It was really good. So I rated this a 4.5 star. This is about a pilot who has his family kidnapped while he's flying a plane, and someone is on the plane that is also working with the person who kidnapped his family. So he has the decision of he either needs to crash the plane or and it saves his family, or he needs to kill his family and save everyone on board. So that was intense. It was really good though. I really liked the way it was written and like the terminology. Like I don't know anything about planes or flying, and I liked the way that this was really informational, but it was dummy proof at the same time. And that's on to one of my favorite books of the year as well, by the same author, called Drowning. This book was even better than Falling. I don't know how to describe it. It was even better. It was so good. It was intense. It was intense. It gave me everything I wanted. Again, another action movie thrown into a book form, and I want both of these books in movie form. They were so good. So this one's about a plane that's having malfunctions and they have to do a water landing, which is not good. And there's just like a lot of shit that happens because of the water landing, and now the airplane's sinking. But then there are people still inside the airplane, and now they need to save the people inside the airplane. And it's really interesting, and it kept me off the edge of my seat, and it kept me enthralled the entire time, and it was so good. The next book I read was Legend. This is a sci-fi young adult dystopian novel, which I'm discovering I really like. It's the second one of the year that I read, because the first one was Shatter Me. So I read this one. I rated this a 4 star. I didn't fully enjoy this, but I did like it. I think what just brought it down for me was the romance aspect, but it's only the first book in a series, so it could get better as the series goes on, and I just need to keep reading it. But this was really good. I did like the action in this book. That was really fun, and it did keep me on the edge of my seat because of that. Again, I just need the romance to be a little bit more romancy-ing. You know, I also read my first Emily Henry book of the year, and it was Beach Read. So I really enjoyed this a lot. I rated this a 7.5 star. This was so close to a 5 star. There was just something about it that brought it down to a 5 star. I think it might have been the ending or something. I don't fully remember what brought it down, but it was brought down a little bit. I remember I liked the characters a lot, and I loved the MMC, and I liked the FMC. They were really awesome, and I liked the story aspect and the story idea, and I'm really excited, and I want to keep reading Emily Henry for sure. I started the Crescent Spring series this year. I read Flawless, so again, I was wanting more cowboy romance, which if you have some really good recommendations, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to have some. So I really enjoyed this a lot. I rated this a 4 star. I think it was just the romance a little bit about it that I didn't fully love. I love the idea of like him being a bull rider. That was really cool. And I read this right after the rodeo, so I had fresh brain about cowboys and bull riders and all that kind of stuff. So I did really enjoy this one a lot. My next book was City of Bones. I started the Mortal Instruments series, meaning I started Cassandra Clare's journey of just books, right? I rated this a 4.5 star. I would have rated it a 5 star if it wasn't the romance aspect between these two characters. So spoiler alert, I had heard something about kind of like incesty weirdness in this series, so I was prepared for it, but I was not expecting it to be like this. So I don't know if it gets weirder as the series goes on, and I'm just kind of scared for it to get weirder as the series go on, so it's like turning me off from continuing it, or if it was just this book entirely and they didn't know, so it's like fair, it's understandable. But I did really enjoy the aspect of it. I liked the kind of urban fantasy aspect of it. I did like the action. That was really fun, but just the romance weirdness brought it down for me. I learned they're full-blooded siblings, and I just don't love that. No, siree. And I think that's what, because I was starting to ship them, but I didn't know what fully their relationship was yet, so I was like, I don't really know. And they had like kids, and it was like cute, and then I learned they were full-blooded siblings, and I just, what? So yeah, that's what brought the book down for me. I want to continue it, but I have to get over the fact that they are full-blooded siblings first. I'm so scared they're gonna get together, and they're not. That's why I'm like, but no one told me it was an incest book though. They just told me it had weird incest thingy going on, but I don't think they end up together. Hopefully, hope to God they don't. So the next one was another flop in the fantasy genre, and I like was expecting it not to be great, but I wasn't expecting it to be this much not for me, you know? It's What Lies Beyond the Veil. So I found this on TikTok. It was like through a couple scenes, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna like this. It had some spicy things that I thought I'd be interested in, and I was like, okay, we're gonna buy this. We're gonna like, I bought it on Audible. I was like, we're gonna finally figure out if like this is a book for me, and I like started. I was really excited. I was like, okay, let's try some fantasy again, like, cause like there's urban fantasy, and I was like doing like dystopian and kind of sci-fi and stuff, but I wanted to try and get back into fantasy, and I rated this a 3.5 stars. I did not like the MMC. there was just something about him that I didn't like. He's not hot in like, in my opinion, at least to me, he's not hot in a morally gray way. He's like a problem. I did not like the romance at all between them, and then the ending reveal, I was like, what? I don't know. It was interesting. So I tried another plus size book, and it was Curvy Girls Don't Date Quarterbacks, and I really did enjoy this one. I enjoyed this one a lot. I rated this a 4-star. I think the only reason that I like am not like in love with it is that it was just like a YA simple like high school romance, and I think I'm discovering that I like college romances and I like adult romances, but I'm getting more and more turned off by high school romances. I did like how the plus size was represented in this a little bit better. The romance was cute. There wasn't nothing like that I was like, oh my godding about, but it was a good book. So the next one's The Hardest Fall. I was really excited for this. I really enjoyed this book a lot of the way through. I think just by the end, I don't know if it was the ending per se that like kind of turned it off for me a little bit, or if it was just, I was just really burnt out with romance, and I got really excited, and then once they got together, I just didn't care anymore. But I rated this a 4-star. I remember really liking it. I loved the idea of them being roommates together. That was cute. I remember I liked the story in general. Now it's spooky season now. It's October. I wanted to read some spooky stuff. I wanted to take a break from, because that was my last romance book that I was like, okay, we're done. We need a break. I just read like a ton of romance books. I need something gripping, and that's where usually like fantasy will come into play. But then I was like, I'm so scared of reading fantasy right now. And so I was just like, let's try some thriller. Let's try some mystery, and it's also spooky season, so let's do that. So the first one I read was Home Before Dark. This was so good. This one was really good. I liked the idea of it. I liked the aspect of it. I liked the way it was told between her like situation and her dad's book. And I liked the back and forth, because then her dad's book would reveal something, and then it would like correlate with like present day. So there's a house that her dad wrote a nonfiction book about. It's like a ghost story. And so a lot of people are like skeptical of it. But basically she doesn't believe in it. She thinks her dad was just doing it for money. Her dad dies, and she discovers that they still have the house. And so she needs to go, she's a renovator, like coincidentally enough. And so she decides she's going to go renovate the house and sell it. But then as she goes, more and more mysterious things start happening, and things starting getting revealed, and it gets intense. It gets crazy. It gave me exactly what I wanted. It was so good. I rated this a 4.5 star, by the way. It was so close to a 5-star, and it was just really gripping, really good. So the next one was another fantasy. It was one of the fantasies that did grip me this year, and it was The Bone Houses. But this was not a normal fantasy that I normally read, and I think that's why. And it was so gripping and good. Like, it's kind of like darker and creepier, and I liked that it was still fantasy and still had that like kind of idea and vibe with it. I rated this a 5-star, so it was my first, I think, fantasy 5-star of the year. And it was not like the normal fantasy I read, so that was really nice. I just read it for spooky season, and it just turned out to be one of my favorite books of the year. And it had a little bit of romance at the very end, but it was so small and so like kind of cutesy that I didn't hate it at all. I loved the reveals. I loved like the creepy aspect of it. It was really good. It was really good. It's basically about these bone houses who, they're like dead people who are like zombified basically, but they're not trying to eat your guts, but they're trying to kill you. It's like a weird thing, and they have to like go figure out what's going on, because now they're like invading the town. So like her and this boy go and like try and figure out what's going on. The next one was The Thief. I almost DNF'd this book. This was so close to a DNF, but I'm so glad I didn't, because the last half of the book, the last 50%, the last like 25%, so good. It's very slow to build up, but once you got to the interesting cool parts, it was really fun. So I rated this a 4-star. It was really good, and I'm excited to continue the series. So I was feeling the baby, like this is the pregnancy baby surprise thing again, and I read One Moment Please. So I've been meaning to read this book for a really long time. It's been on my TBR forever. It's always recommended to me when I look up like surprise baby things, and it's always like something that I've been wanting to read. But I've never started it until this year. It's like a third book in the standalone series. I like to read series regardless if they're standalone or if they're actual like continuation series in order, and it's really annoying. And I just was not in the mood to read the first book. I was like, I don't want to read the first book. I just want to read about the pregnancy trope. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to read it. And if I like the series, I'll just go back and read the other ones. But at least I can read the book I actually want to read. And I'm so glad I did that, because I love this book. I flew through it. It was really good. Love the slow burn, and I love the MMC, and it was just It was really good. Then I was like, you know what? I really like this. Now I want to go start with the first book and see how they, like, because that's, again, it's the best friend situation, and I want to go see how they fell in love. So I read Wait With Me. This one didn't hit as hard. I think it was just a shorter book. There wasn't as much slow burn between them. I think they got into bed too fast together, but I get why they got in bed in fast. I think it just didn't sit too well with me, and I think I read them too close together. So I rated this a 4-star, and it was cute. It was good. I wasn't like in love with it as much as I was with the third book. So now we're in Christmas time, and I was like, I want to read some Christmas books. I wanted to get kind of in that holiday spirit with books, and I thought that was going to be perfect. So the first one I read was Snowed In for Christmas. This book I did really enjoy. This book I almost couldn't have enjoyed if, like, at all. I would have DNF'd it if I went into it differently than I actually did. So I rated this a 4.25 stars. It was really good. So basically it's supposed to be about this guy and girl. Their names are Lucy and Ross, and they're supposed to end up stuck together in this house with Ross's family for the winter in close proximity, and they were supposed to fall in love. Like, it's supposed to be a romance book, right? This was a book about a family snowed in for Christmas and them having to just be in close proximity to each other, but also dealing with like personal issues, and then that kind of turns into family issues. It was told from the perspective of almost the entire girls of the family, so the mom and then Ross's 2 sisters, and then it was told from Lucy's POV, so it had the 4 POVs. There was romance thrown in there, and it was very like the 3 girls besides the mom, because she's like married, fell in love, but it was not a romance book. Like, this was hardly a romance book. This was a family book. Like, it was a holiday book. Like, it was just, the romance was so subpar. The romance was not great, and if I went into this wanting it to be a romance book, would have hated it. Absolutely hated it. But I just went into it just like, hey, I just want this holiday book. I don't care if there's romance. I really, really enjoyed it. I did really enjoy it because of that, and I zoomed through it, and it was really enjoyable. I think I read it in almost one sitting. So the next one I read was Sleigh Bells Ring. I rated this a 3.5 stars. So this is very Hallmark movie-esque kind of vibes, like small town, like Christmas time, there's stuff going on, and then there's like romance thrown in there. The romance in this wasn't my favorite. I didn't like the romance, but I liked everything else that was going on without romance. It can be kind of triggering, surprisingly, but this is what, like, the romance aspect was not what I was wanting, but the plot was really good. So that's why I rated it a 3.5, but it would have been like a 3 or a 2.5 if I was just reading it for the romance. So we're on my last 2 books of the year, finally. I'm so sorry. I hope this video is shorter. So I read Broken Bonds, the Bonds That Tie series, book 1. So I read this before the Christmas books. I think I read it right after my Halloween books. It was really good. I gave this a 5 stars easily. I loved the build-up. I loved the story idea. I loved the idea of bonds. I loved the kind of urban fantasy sci-fi aspect of it. Really good. I flew through this book for sure. So then I had to wait a couple months because the audiobook wasn't ready for hold for like 5 weeks. And I was like, okay, we can wait. We can see. And I just like held on, and then I finally got it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can read this now. So then I read Savage Bonds, and this was my last book of the year. So I read it right before the end of the year. I finished it on the 30th. So this was really good too. I rated this also a 5 stars. Really good. I loved, again, everything going on with the plot. That was really interesting. And like some stuff happened with the bonds that I wasn't expecting in this one. That was insane. And the way this book ends, crazy. Absolutely crazy for sure. But yeah, this was really good. So I ended in a banger for sure. But yeah, that's all the books I read in 2023. Thank you for sticking around and like seeing what I read, and if you were interested in my thoughts and feelings and opinions on it. But yeah, this was really fun to do. It was fun talking about all the books I read and kind of like reflecting on my year, and seeing that I did kind of have a slower year, and like the things I didn't fully love about books and the things I did really enjoy about books. And I'm hopeful that 2022 will be a better reading year for me. But with that said, I don't really have anything else to talk about for 2023. So I will see you guys in the next video.